Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back. We are live from Los Angeles and we're going to talk about watches. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the watches at the Emmys, not only in the way that I showcased them and identified them on Instagram, but also in a way to demystify the process, so to speak, that puts those watches, that gets those watches on the wrists of these celebrities, these public figures, and what are the exceptions. So, on Instagram, I present it in one way, trying to weave it together with storytelling and some horological details usually. Here, I'll try to break it down a little bit and see what else we can learn about those watches and the people who wear them, which really is the most important, most exciting part. That's great. I usually get caught with some sort of lingerie brands account here, so I got Basquiat's official Instagram account, which will make me look very sophisticated indeed. So let's go to my profile, however. And if you don't follow me, please do. Um, but just to put it out there, um, when the award season starts, and when oh hi Ryan, thank you so much. Shalom, shalom. I really, really do appreciate that you did that. Thank you so much. Um, so I was saying when the award season starts, or when a public figure has something to promote, say they have just published a book, they're coming out with a new movie, they are playing the lead in an upcoming TV series or Netflix series, whatever else. Um, Honestly, AB, for me, they were never a thing. I just care about the watches and the people. I do watch some TV, less and less. I don't actually have a TV at home, but you know what I mean. I watch streaming. I stream shows, so it matters at some level because you see the people who act in those shows um, walk onto the stage and accept some awards. So it's it can be an interesting pastime. I would rather watch sports. I'd rather watch boxing. I'd rather watch football, aka soccer. I'd rather watch rowing, for fuck's sake. But you know, people usually don't wear watches when they are competing athletically. Certainly, they're not allowed to wear any jewelry in football anymore. Um, Formula One, they're not allowed to actually wear any watches into the cockpit, into the cars anymore. Um, you know, so tennis probably remains the only sport that I care about and that where people still wear watches while competing. So for that reason, I'm still very much interested in award shows. But what I was saying about award shows, about promotional activities that celebrities engage in, there are some that are very hands-on and take care of themselves, so to speak. Choose style themselves, choose what to wear, choose what suit to wear, what outfit to put together, and what watch to put on the wrist. And there are some others who leave everything to their stylist. And then there are those that somehow fall in between these two paradigms. And what often happens is that unless we're talking about someone of the stature of a Mark Wahlberg, right? Someone who has instant name recognition. It's often the stylist of this person that will have a direct line of communication with the brands involved. And that includes the watch brands as well. So oftentimes, those stylists, as they're putting together an outfit for a late night show appearance or for a night at the Oscars or presenting at the Emmys or potentially accepting an award um, at the Grammys, let's say, it's the stylist usually who picks what these people will wear, and then they will reach out to the brands for watches to borrow. And again, in this particular arrangement too, who you are and what kind of name recognition and star power you possess will have everything to do with what you will get and what you will potentially get to keep, right? A lot of times brands land these figures a watch or two for a certain award season so that they might wear one on one occasion and the other on the next occasion. Sometimes they will get one watch, sometimes they will get the hottest new release, sometimes they will get to pick whatever they want, and sometimes they will even get to pick one to keep, right? It all depends. It all depends. And obviously, uh, when you're Robert Downey Jr. or Lenny Kravitz, you are more in line with the kind of celebrity who will get a bunch of different watches to wear and who will get to keep at least one or a couple. Um, so with that caveat, with that being said, um, with that clarified as well, AB, I do appreciate you asking that question or ribbing on me, because it helps me, it helps me uh, at least rationalize what I'm trying to do here and explain that in some detail, because yeah, this is like professional sports for watch nerds to identify watches on people's wrists and talk about them. That's like our favorite pastime, huh? Um, and yes, ratings are way down. AB says, I remember watching Senna win Monaco GP in 93. When he got out of the car, he was wearing a tag on a leather strap. Yeah, I remember when I first started watching these things, Formula One in particular. I occasionally watched other racing events, rally competitions and endurance racing and whatever else. But to me, nothing hits the spot like Formula One. But yes, they were actually wearing these watches. Now those watches are a logo on the helmet and like a representation of the watch on the sleeve of a racing suit, which is really sad. But I do understand that, obviously wearing any sort of jewelry within the car can jeopardize you and risk additional injuries and unexpected things in the unfortunate case of an accident. So I completely understand. Controversial opinion, AB, controversial opinion. Senna was great. He was my favorite. I had the terrible misfortune of watching him um, die in live television when I was 10 years old. He was one of the greats, perhaps the greatest, but he wore shit watches. I'm sorry. From the Tag Heuers that he wore to the Universal Genève signature model, they were all pretty bad. Um, and I'm not going to walk that statement back. I'm sorry. Heuer, Tag Heuer, they have made a lot of great watches in through the decades, so to speak. Unfortunately, Senna didn't get to wear them. Senna always got to wear the watches they have to push. And that's how marketing works. As we are jumping into the Emmys, that's how marketing works a lot of times. It's so much easier to sell your hottest release without having to put it on the wrist of a celebrity. It's the pieces that are harder to move that that you have to prioritize. That's why, for example, when you go to what's this maker from Le Brassus, Audemars Piguet? When you go to their website, you go to watches, you go to collections. Oh, code 1159 comes first. Why? Because it's their best design? Wrong. Because it's their hottest watch? Wrong. Because it sells like hotcakes? Wrong. Because it's the one that they're desperate to sell. Everything else more or less sells itself. Everything else has some other aspect, some virtue that speaks for itself. Code 1159, it doesn't. That's why it has to come first. There are exceptions to this, of course, but that's generally how horological marketing works. So yes, that's why Senna had to wear the shitters, because he was the star. I know it sounds paradoxical, but that's exactly the reason. Thank you so much, Chalk Flew Up. I appreciate you. And Tim B, thanks for recognizing it as a great stream. All right, so let's start with that in mind. Let's start watching some of the pieces. Let's start with what the host was wearing. This is Nate Bargatze, the comedian who also was the host of the 77th Primetime Emmy Awards. He was wearing the Breguet Souscription 2025. So this is the watch that Breguet released to celebrate their 250th anniversary. One of the special pieces that they have released to mark the occasion. It's actually not a limited edition. And with everything that has to speak for it, honestly, it's also not a disproportionately expensive watch. As far as I know, I do want to double check, just so I don't, give you mistaken information. Yeah, it's 48,700, which again, honestly, it's a lot of money. But for a Breguet dress watch that carries all the different attributes that I'm just going to outline, it's not too bad. This is a watch that is actually modeled after the earliest known subscription pocket watch, the number 3424, which is from year 1797. It is a single-hander, just like this watch. And it features an enamel dial just like this watch as well. The Breguet hand that serves as the only indication of time is in stainless steel, heat blued, and rendered in a way that's even more faithful to the vintage form of that palm shape, the apple shape, the round loop shape that it has, and with the more extended slender tip. The dial is white enamel, grand feu enamel, and then the numbers as well as the signature is in black enamel, what they call petit feu enamel. And the wonderful detail, which is a secret signature, right, that they have here at 6 o'clock, that you can very faintly see, but I'm going to send you the link. So if you want to open it in another window and look at it on my Instagram page, which you should, of course, follow. You know, there is secret signature as a kind of homage on guilloche dial Breguet watches these days. But that's all laser engraved. Here you have a secret signature at 6 o'clock, which was a technique that Breguet himself used because he was already in the 18th century fighting against counterfeits. And this was his way of certifying, of co-signing the authenticity of his product. And it was applied, it was engraved with a diamond-tipped pantograph tool. And the funny thing is, you know, Breguet laser engrave all the other secret signatures that they use on guilloche dials specifically. In this case, they used a real pantograph with a diamond-tipped tool. And that pantograph machine itself dates back to the 18th century. And it was actually bought from the estate of George Daniels. So it's an incredible little connection that I was astonished to find, and that I didn't know at the beginning. You know, I just thought it was, hey, you know, it's a cool detail that they are replicating without necessarily, you know, putting too much emphasis on it. But, you know, it actually is very, very meaningful because obviously not only does it repeat something that Abraham Louis Breguet did in the 18th century, but it also literally takes a tool that one of his most devout, quote-unquote, students has personally used, and that's George Daniels, who literally wrote the book, The Art of Breguet, right? You know, one of the most important modern watchmakers who has studied and interpreted Breguet's tradition of watchmaking for the 20th century and possibly beyond. So that's a cool little Easter egg, so to speak, in more ways than one. The case shape is very interesting because this is actually, it departs from the shape that we have gotten used to. It still features the teardrop lugs, but they have a different contour. They have a different kind of curvature, more ergonomic, something that wears a little better on the wrist. And you guys know that that's one of the sticking points with a lot of Breguet's dress watches as their diameter size grew over the years, right? Because especially when they reached 40 with those straight extended lugs, they were very large on the wrist. So it's not always the best. But in this case, you have a case that's redesigned, that's revised, and also aesthetically, it has a satin finish on the case band that replaces the coin edge design, which again was only one of the methods that Breguet used to decorate his cases. This is more faithful to the pocket watch that it's trying to reinterpret for this era. By the way, that's the entire modern history of Breguet, right? To reinterpret, recreate, re-envisage what Breguet would have done in an era of wristwatches, since he operated in an era that was solidly pocket watch heavy. Even though, of course, he has made other kinds of pieces and clocks as well. The case is made from an original alloy, a proprietary alloy, so to speak. Essentially a more pale version of yellow gold, something that harkens back again to the 18th century. Still 18 carats, and a blend of gold, silver, copper, and palladium that they simply call Breguet gold. It's not, yeah, it's like, you know, Chanel's beige gold, like AP sand gold. I'm trying to mark by that, saying that to mark both the fact that it's proprietary, but also in that similar range. Because of course, you know, Lange has honey gold, but that's a very different color palette to these paler shades of yellow. Oh, I said grand feu enamel dial, petit feu numerals. The difference is the temperature of firing there. Grand, of course, being the higher temperature. The font of the numbers, even if it is the Arabic numeral font that we came to recognize as Breguet, is again slightly different, kind of more antiquated, but again more faithful perhaps for this kind of piece. And the movement is where everything happens. The frame, the bezel that frames the sapphire crystal through which you can glimpse the movement has a guilloche decoration. And the layout of the movement is very similar, of course, to what they use in the Tradition line, which is not surprising, of course, because that line too is trying to imitate, trying to recreate, let's say more charitably, the design, the movement design of Breguet's pocket watches. Although this is very differently finished. It itself is very modern. You know, it beats at 3 hertz. Has a Nivacron non-magnetic hairspring that you can see here. But it is finished in this gilt brass color that matches that Breguet gold shade of the case. And the finish of it is shot blasted, again, to make it look like the finish of those pocket watches, more akin to that classic decoration. And in the very middle, you have this oversized ratchet wheel, which actually literally carries the text from Abraham Louis Breguet's advertising pamphlet for describing the subscription movement. And it's rendered in that interesting cursive font there, blued steel screws and rubies. Of course, it's a beautiful looking movement, both within the watch and also in this more conceptual way. Of course, it's inscribed with Breguet and the specific number. And that signature, again, is carried into the secret signature, which says Breguet Souscription, a number of the specific watch, which is also to say its number. Please hit the like button, by the way. This is, again, Nate Bargatze and the Breguet Classique Souscription 2025 that he was wearing as the host. Chances are it was placed there on his wrist, but nevertheless, I think it was one of the more interesting pieces to wear. The next watch, as it happens, is at the diametrical opposite of this. One, because it's a vintage piece. It's a hand-wound Daytona, and it's a piece that Jason Bateman bought almost 2 decades ago here in LA from the West Los Angeles institution, Wanna Buy a Watch. Jason Bateman presented an award with fellow actor Jude Law at the Emmys, and he was wearing this Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 6263 with the Panda dial. That's from circa 1979. And he talks about this watch in a 2011 GQ interview when he was lamenting his inability to build a proper vintage Rolex collection. I'm sure that's not a problem anymore because a lot of things happened in the meantime. Of course, Arrested Development has been has made a comeback and has kind of established itself as a cult classic. And then, of course, Jason Bateman became perhaps even more successful as a podcaster than he was as an actor. So I'm sure the money is not a problem anymore, but he still comes back to this watch. He still ends up wearing this watch. Here is a shot from a few months ago when he was wearing the same piece. And I talked to Ken from Wanna Buy a Watch and confirmed with him too. This is exactly the watch that he bought in a bygone era from Wanna Buy a Watch. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. 6263 with the plastic bezel, screw down pushers, and a beautiful Panda dial. A Sigma dial, as it happens. So this stands in a way at the diametric opposite of most celebrity watches that you see in an award show, right? It's something that he bought with his own money. It's something, it represents a personal choice, and it's for him an important part of his collection. It's the watch that he keeps coming back to and keeps wearing all the time. Again, don't forget to hit the like and comment. You know, I always try to ask specific kinds of questions to frame the conversation in the comments at the end of the caption. If you want to respond to that, by all means. If you just want to leave a comment for whatever reason, that always helps. So please don't hesitate to do that. In a similar vein, for example, we have Stephen Graham's Daytona, which is not a vintage piece, but which is not necessarily current either. Again, please hit the like button. As always, it's well appreciated. If you have been following me from Instagram, please subscribe here. This is where we break things down. This is where we talk about things in greater detail. So it's always helpful. If you like my Instagram content, I don't see the possibility of you not liking this. Once again, you know, this is a piece that Stephen Graham has worn, I think, for quite some time. I've seen him on a couple of other occasions. It is a 116520. This is the first generation of Rolex Daytonas that were powered by the caliber 4130, the in-house movement, so to speak, Rolex's first chronograph movement, for which they had to wait until year 2000, if you could believe it. And it is also the generation, it's also the reference that preceded the ceramic bezel craze with the introduction of 116-500 LN, which I believe was in 2016, right? So this was the Daytona, and really the Daytona that picked up steam and became a genuine hype watch. I think the introduction of the automatic movements in 1988 had a lot to do with the increasing popularity of the Daytona in the 90s. Rolex's in-house movement, I think, elevated things a little bit, so intensified the Daytona's popularity, but also I think it signaled a broader change, a sea change in the horological industry in general, because this was the moment where slowly but surely vertical integration was becoming the name of the game, right? Having everything produced in-house, having the manufacturing capabilities that take you from point A to point Z became really important for watch brands. And Rolex's marketing in year 2000 and beyond framed the introduction of the new Daytona around this, and I think had a major effect in how we have for quite some time experienced the primacy of in-house movements. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I don't know if you care about in-house movements or not. There's a very interesting discussion that is already taking place in the comments, so feel free to join that. But this is Stephen Graham, who won the Outstanding Lead Actor in a limited or anthology series or movie with his role in Adolescence, which won so many other awards. And you can see him with Some of the Whole here, because also he was the co-creator of the series. So he deserves to enjoy the kind of hype that has built around the show. A 116520 with a white dial. This is a very interesting post for me, because for the longest time, and I maybe even still, I want to double check now. Oh, wait, what's going on here? For the longest time, it had actually more shares than likes, which is very interesting, right? You guys already know that I don't care much for the Code 1159, but it turns out that most other people don't either, or, which is even funnier, maybe they have a hard time admitting to themselves that they have begun to like it. I don't know. I don't belong to that group necessarily. I wish, because it's been now 6 years after the release of this watch, and I really still don't like it. Right now, this post has 141 likes, 112 shares, which is insane for me, because like the Bond post, for example, the Daniel Craig vintage Omega Seamaster post that was one of the recent popular posts, that has almost 2,300 likes and 219 shares. So usually the number of shares is only a fraction of the number of likes. Here, they're almost equivalent. So there we go. People are still a little bit broken up about Code 1159. It's still at least proves to be controversial. We can say that. This is the new Code 1159 by Audemars Piguet perpetual calendar, the one with the smoked blue embossed dial, which I still can't suffer. No matter how original the design is, whether it was drafted and designed by a genuine guilloche master, I still can't stomach the fact that AP can sell a watch like that rather than a genuine hand guilloche dial, especially for a six-figure watch, right? You might understand that the time and date versions in stainless steel, perhaps, they can have the stamped dial, but at this level, they really need to do better. We are talking about Audemars Piguet, right? We're talking about the apex predator. We're talking about the primary custodian of the watchmaking tradition in the Valley. You can't sell a watch that almost costs $135,000, $140,000 out of the door with a stamped dial. That's a shame. That's an embarrassment. Coming back, this is one of the new perpetual calendars that AP has introduced, which is powered by the caliber 7138. The new generation AP perpetual calendar movements eliminate the need of any pushers for the correction. Therefore, also the need for a stylus, the need for a pin pusher for adjustments, but more importantly, everything now, every single calendar function may be adjusted individually by discrete positions of the crown, which is really, really amazing. And of course, that itself is not a new invention, right? The Kurt Klaus module in 1986 had already established a system where you could correct or adjust, rather, the perpetual calendar via the crown. However, that was a synchronous adjustment, which brought a number of problems. I'm not going to go into that digression. Here, you have discrete positions of the crown that allow you to adjust everything separately and precisely, backwards and forwards, so you can, it's much more user-friendly. Yes, exactly. So we are going back to the same point, Chalk. Obviously, this watch was, put on his wrists in all likelihood. But, it's still, the new perpetual calendar excites me. I don't care about the Code 1159 much. It's still not a design I like. It's not something I particularly enjoy. But, I get excited about the new perpetual calendar movement, because that's precisely what the kind of thing that I expect from AP, and I've been positively surprised. I put a snippet in the next one of the sand gold perpetual calendar on my wrist. It's a great watch. I wish I had $250,000 to plunk down on that. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to swing it myself. I would still need, to use some sort of connection, I think, which I may or may not have. But I don't have that kind of money, at least not now. Perhaps never. Perhaps not in this lifetime. But this is Trammell Tillman, who actually made history because he became the first Black man to win Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series at the Emmys. Severance is a very popular show, which I still haven't watched. but he is very popular, and he's wearing the new Code 1159 perpetual calendar in 18 karat white gold with this blue dial that is paired with a soft blue alligator leather strap that I think goes really well with the watch. Not sure if, again, if this kind of watch goes with that kind of ensemble, but hey, I wasn't his stylist, so it's not a responsibility that I have to take or that I eventually have to care about. And here is the sand gold on Sterling K. Brown's wrist, who's an actor that I know much better, much more intimately through his work. He was wearing the sand gold new AP Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar, the reference 26674. It wasn't a publicity stunt that he rolled in on a scooter. It is a proper leg scooter. Apparently, he has a torn Achilles tendon. But he wanted to still enjoy the occasion with his fellow cast members from Paradise. And he will have an operation apparently now that the award ceremony has happened. Beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful piece. This metal, again, it's a proprietary alloy. Essentially, you can say, hey, it's nothing new. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's just a paler version of yellow gold, but it's not exactly, right? You know, it's like either registers as a very subtle version of yellow gold with a slight hue of pink in certain instances, and that you can see kind of here on Sterling Brown's wrist, and even in this photo of the watch separately. Pardon me. Or it kind of looks like a very rich and warm version of white gold. And the person, the sales associate who presented the watch to me and my good friend, actually said it's like sand gold is like stainless steel with a good tan, which was actually quite an amazing way to describe it. I don't know if that's something they were taught at the AP house. I don't know if it is part of a script that they have memorized and they have been trained on. But what a beautiful way to put it, because it is really, for the most part, quite subtle for a gold watch. This would be a killer in an open worked, I think, and they do already have, by the way, the sand gold open work tourbillon, which we can take a quick look at as a kind of, touchstone before we jump on to the next watch. Yeah, I think an open work perpetual calendar in this metal would be amazing, and they do have the open worked flying tourbillon, which has those parallel open worked bridges that really frame the whole affair quite nicely. What a beautiful piece. I actually have a picture of someone wearing that, which I should perhaps post tomorrow. But yeah, this was probably one of the most impressive watches that I personally got to try on. And God knows I've tried on a lot of different things, but hardly have I been more impressed with a new release in the way I was with this, because it because of everything that it brings in a single package, right? The fact that it has the new perpetual calendar movement, the fact that it has that alloy that is new to AP at the very least. Which again builds on the recent achievements of the RD2, which was the ultra-thin perpetual calendar, and the RD4, which was the Code 1159 Universel, that ultra-complicated piece that won the GPHG in 2023. It eliminates the need for recessed correctors on the case, which is an aesthetic enhancement, but of course, is a utilitarian enhancement as well, because now everything can be adjusted with the crown. And as an improvement on previous crown-adjusted perpetual calendar systems, the new caliber, of course, allows the setting of all calendrical functions individually through different positions of the crown, backwards and forwards. And I think all of that makes the reference 26674 SG one of the most horologically and aesthetically compelling propositions on the market today. And Sterling K. Brown was wearing it on his wrist. And yes, it was probably put there by a stylist. Speaking of which, here is another actor whom I got to know for the most part from This Is Us, as I did with Sterling Brown. This is Justin Hartley. And he was there to present, and he was wearing an open-worked perpetual calendar, in this case, the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Perpetual Calendar, ultra-thin skeleton in 18-karat pink gold with the blue accents on the dial, on its open-work dial. Of course, there's also a version that has kind of that silvered white details as well. I think the blue one looks better. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. Everyone likes a blue dial. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But to me, what's most interesting about the ultra-thin overseas perpetual calendars is the fact that after AP has retired caliber 5134, and most recently the open-worked sibling caliber 5135, Vacheron Constantin's ultra-thin overseas perpetual calendars remain the only contemporary line of timepieces powered by the legacy of JLC caliber 920. Of course, that is the ébauche, that's the base of the ultra-thin tractor caliber that Gégé Lecoutre so famously conceived for the Holy Trinity in 1967. And it was at the time and still the thinnest self-winding movement with a full rotor. And it powered not only the first generation of the Royal Oak, but also the first generation of the Patek Philippe Nautilus and the Vacheron Constantin 222. And in fact, AP's version, the 2121, was the beating heart of the Royal Oak Jumbo until very recently, until 2022, which is when they transitioned on the 50th anniversary to 7121, their in-house movement. And the open, beyond the fact that you can see still the legacy movement from the sapphire crystal caseback. You can also glimpse onto the perpetual calendar module through the openwork dial, which is rendered in various shades of gray. All right, so that covers it. There were other watches that I glimpsed, but that I didn't want to write about. Mostly, time constraints. I've already posted about what is it? 6 or 7 watches in 2 days. I don't want to overwhelm my audience. I want to be kind. I want to do as much work as I can, provide as much content as I can, but I also don't want to exhaust people, which happens sometimes. So I hope it didn't happen today, or rather yesterday, I should say. We are now going to look at an auction house that we are not used to yet. This is Future Grail. They're based out of Singapore, and they are, in a way, one of the disruptors. I don't know what this meme is about. We'll see later. Here's what I will do. I gave the link in the chat. I do want to take a look at some of the upcoming auctions from Philips, and in the meantime, you can discover some of the lots presented there. And if there's any that you would like me to look at, you can send in the lot number with a super chat, and that will encourage me that will propel me forward, but that will also help me to go into it with as much historical and horological detail as possible, and give you a detailed review. So Philips will have an online auction based out of Hong Kong that will start in about 2 days and will last for a whole week, called IWC Back to the 80s, focusing on a collection of IWC pieces which are a throwback to that time, which are from that decade, from the Porsche design chronograph ones they did, to the Ocean 2000s, the military divers, to the Compass watch, so on and so forth. It will be a very interesting selection, I think. I think through the auction, if you happen to be in Hong Kong, the pieces are going to be open to public viewing in the Pedder building in Hong Kong. So that's something to keep in mind. But this is an auction that we will look at in the coming days. Another auction that's coming up based in Hong Kong from Philips is the Hong Kong sessions. We have gone through the Geneva sessions. Now, concurrently with the IWC Back to the 80s, they will have a broader selection of pieces, which they're also going to put up for public viewing at the Pedder building, which includes this Holland and Holland chronometer, probably the most minimalist time-only piece by Jean ever made in limited numbers, in collaboration with the London's best heritage rifle makers. Holland and Holland, which were at the time held by the Wertheimer brothers, who, of course, own Chanel and who are very passionate watch collectors themselves and long-standing customers, as well as stakeholders of F. Bejon. Stainless steel. Of course, the Holland and Holland chronometer has a dial which is actually made from the barrels of two vintage Damascus steel Holland and Holland shotguns. Quite a remarkable thing. There's going to be apparently a 5711 line 1R. I think that's an RM016 in pink gold, but I'm not sure. That's really not my expertise nor interest. There is going to be a stainless steel example of the new Rolex Land Dweller. There's going to be Moza Streamliner Tourbillon with a rainbow bezel. That's about the pieces that they are previewing for the moment. So we are going to take a look at these two online auctions based out of Hong Kong by Philips. But today we are going to take a look at Future Grail. Future Grail, again, is one of those disruptive auction houses that have a lot of online events, a lot of online exclusive auctions. They also have a private sales section, right, where they have a bunch of different watches, or I should say an exquisite selection of highly curated pieces that are for sale at a set price that I'm sure is always open to negotiation. But these are pieces that they have listed already that are separate from the auctions. And then they now have an auction that began today, so almost a day ago, in, of course, considering the time difference in Singapore. So you will see a lot of these watches have been bid on already. But I've shared the link already, so you have it there. I'm going to just drop it again. If you have any questions, any watch-related questions whatsoever, please send them in with a super chat. If you do want me to pay attention to a piece, to a lot that I skipped over or that I didn't get to just yet, I will respond to your super chat immediately if you send me the lot number and provide as much historical and horological detail as possible. I'll start with some of the pieces that are perhaps the heavy hitters. I always love these. This is a Patek Philippe 5101R. The tourbillon with a rectangular Art Deco case with that three-stepped flank. Beautiful two-tone gray dial. Breguet numerals, leaf-shaped hands, and it has a slightly oversized seconds hand on a subdial at 6 o'clock, and counterbalancing that, a power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock for 10 days. Of course, like most examples of a Patek Philippe tourbillon watch, the piece does not have an open work tourbillon cage that is visible on the face of the dial. Rather, it has the inscription tourbillon and the specific movement number, and you can see the tourbillon actually from the case back. What a beautiful form-fitting movement to fit that rectangular case. Of course, the Geneva seal right there, bearing the hallmark of Geneva, and with this 1 minute tourbillon at the 6 o'clock position, visible from through the exhibition case back. Stunning piece in pink gold. Decent condition. The piece has not yet attracted any offers. The estimated price point, the pre-auction estimate, falls somewhere between $120,000 to $160,000, and the starting bid would be right around $120,000. I'll actually let's spice things up a little bit. I will set a goal for the next 45 minutes, right? If I get 5 super chats of 1 hour, 5 super chats of $5 or more, I'll go until midnight. So let's do that. I will I really appreciate all the likes you have been giving me, which are quite proportionate to the number of people who are watching right now. But if you haven't yet, please hit the like button. That's for free, and that does everything to boost the channel, to boost the kind of work that I do here. If you want to help me out, if you do want to support me in more ways, YouTube gives you And if that's not something you prefer to do, of course there is some other ways outlined in the video description. But let's continue. This was lot number 26 for the ongoing Future Grail online auction for a Patek Philippe Tourbillon, reference 5101R, with a stunning 10-day power reserve and presented in this beautiful Art Deco rectangular case. Lot number 25 is a limited edition of 1,300 pieces. This is the 5575G. The Patek Philippe World Time wristwatch in white gold with the moon phase indicator to honor the 175th anniversary of the manufacture. Comes from around year 2014. And of course, in addition to serving as the world time, it also has at the center of the dial which is rendered like a night sky, a moon phase indicator, right? And of course, that has a lot to do with the ongoing theme in Patek. That goes at least back to the introduction of the star caliber to mark the new millennium. And later the Sky Moon Tourbillon, which was released in 2002. But this is a beautiful watch. It's also presented in a case that has these like lyre lugs, very unique, in addition to the rare complication. And this piece also has not yet attracted any bids. The pre-auction estimate is set in the range between 75,000 to 95,000 US dollars. The case back is inscribed to mark the 175th anniversary with the two dates, 1839, 2014. The case is 39 millimeters in diameter, roughly, and again, very uniquely rendered, combining the world time and moon phase, world time complication and the moon phase indication. That was lot number 25. Also looking at the two 3970s that I saw here. Am I missing them? Were they above? No, they're right here. We have at lot 64 an example of the fourth series in pink gold. This is the 3970 ER. E stands for étanche, waterproof, for the screw down case back. And R stands for rose, of course, for the pink gold. Distinguished, of course, by the multifaceted finish on the indices, the bullet shape that is called obus in French, and the simple épée or baton shaped hands. Of course, this perpetual calendar chronograph has subtly recessed subdials here, which are chronograph registers that encircle the indications for day and night, the 24-hour indication at 9 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock, you have the leap year indication. Those are the smaller hands in that. You have the centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand that is heat blued. You have the downward facing crescent, an opening in the shape of a downward facing crescent, which give you the moon phase indication and a pointer date that surrounds that. And at 12 o'clock, you have two wickets for the day of the week as well as the month. Sorry, guys. I really had to respond to this. This is the 3970 in pink gold from the fourth series, valued in the range between 140,000 to 160,000, with the current bid standing at 120,000 in US dollars. This is a reference that we will explore in an upcoming episode of the RAR, references and auction results. So keep your eyes peeled for that. This was lot number 64 at the Future Grail online auction. You have at lot 65 an earlier example in platinum from the second series. And I'm sure your eyes are already trained to see some of the easier differences, easier to notice, I should say. Because you see the shape of the hands is feuille here, or leaf-shaped hands. You have baton markers rather than the multifaceted bullet-shaped, obus-shaped markers. You also have of course different fonts, not only on the dial itself, but especially on the calendar wheels that you can glimpse through these apertures at 12 o'clock, through these wickets at 12 o'clock. This is an Italian calendar, if I'm not mistaken. The pink gold was an English one. The layout remains the same, so I don't want to repeat, but this is a platinum example from the second series from around year 1990. Closed case back. Here's the movement, which of course is built on the Lemania CH27 base. Finished, assembled, and regulated according to the highest standards of the Genevan tradition of watchmaking, and therefore it bears the hallmark of Geneva on its balance bridge, as you can see here. The rather distinctive shape of the chronograph bridge there for Patek, and of course, again, that signature cap on the column wheel is all present, even though it is under the case back. This is a platinum example from the second series, 3970P, with a pre-auction estimate that stands between 200 to 400,000 in US dollars, currently being bid at 200,000 in US dollars. There were a few other pieces from that I kind of passed over that I will now go back. Lot number 30. This is the Roger Dubuis. Speaking of Genevan watchmaking, Roger Dubuis H37, the Hommage Quantième Perpétuel, the Hommage Perpetual Calendar, classic 37 millimeter round case, that concave bezel, Breguet numerals at 12, 2, 6, and 10 o'clock, the alpha-shaped hands, sweep center seconds, and an asymmetric dial layout for a pointer date that's right at 4:30, a moon phase display that's at 7:30, the two wickets at 12 o'clock for the day of the week and the month, and then there's like a portal-like indicator for the leap year at 3 o'clock. And of course, since Roger Dubuis always presented himself as a Genevan watchmaker, the piece does have a movement which bears the hallmark of Geneva. And in fact, it also carries the observatory bulletin for chronometer certification. Let me see if those documents are displayed here. Unfortunately not. The piece is in pink gold, which has took on an even warmer patina over the years. Again, it is rendered in 37 millimeters. With a white dial. I think a very charming asymmetric layout. These pieces are very beautiful when you can find them as a full set because of all the documents that come for the Geneva hallmark certification and the chronometer certification from the Besançon Observatory and everything. It's they're great. I don't think this is the case here. The piece is currently being bid at 20,000 US dollars. It had a very low estimate that was set in the range between 8,000 to 12,000. But it has already transcended that. This is lot 30 for the Roger Dubuis Hommage Perpetual Calendar, 37 millimeters in 18 karat pink gold, currently being bid at $20,000 at lot number 30. Let's stick to that theme. We're looking at perpetual calendars. Here is a beautiful example of that. MBNF Legacy Machine Perpetual Calendar. This was, of course, a collaboration between the Irish watchmaker Stephen McDonnell and the person who gave the brand his name, Max Busa, Maximilian Busa and friends, after all. The Legacy Machine Perpetual here comes from a limited edition, limited run of 25 pieces in stainless steel. Blue details, which includes the base plate of the movement. The aesthetic is still somehow balanced with the off-center main dial that is shifted to 12 o'clock. That exposed and suspended balance bridge, anchoring the whole affair, which is laid out in a very balanced fashion with the three subdials. At 3, you have the weekday. At 9, you have the pointer date. At 6, you have the month. And then flanking that indicator, flanking that subdial, you have the leap year indicator to its left at around 7 o'clock, which is a retrograde indicator for the leap year. 1, 2, 3, 4, snapback. And then you have the power reserve indicator on the right, 4 o'clock. Here's a look at the movement, which bears the signature of Stephen McDonnell at its back. This is a movement made out of 581 components, fully integrated, purpose-built, designed from scratch, developed by the Irish watchmaker Stephen McDonnell for his friend Max Busa. Developed from the ground up to eliminate the drawbacks of conventional perpetual calendar movements. It's user-friendly thanks to its innovative mechanical processor. No more skipping dates or jamming gears. The adjuster pushers automatically deactivate when the calendar changes, so no problems there either. And if you are trying to set it between those sensitive hours around midnight, say 10 to 2 p.m., the watch itself mechanically disables that functionality of correction, so you can't actually screw it up. It's quite an ingenious piece. The Legacy Machine Perpetual Calendar from MBNF, Max Busa and friends, in stainless steel from a 25-piece limited run with the blue accents. The pre-auction estimate is set between 120,000 to 180,000 in US dollars. The piece has not yet attracted any bids, but the starting bid would be 100,000 in US dollars. Let's take a look at what I've presented in the thumbnail. They have two beautiful open-worked chronographs, one from Vacheron Constantin, one from Omega. This is the Vacheron Constantin example. It was their historique So these pieces do exist in non-open worked form, right? The 47-107, for example. This is the platinum and open worked version. Skeletonized bridges that are also hand engraved in this florid fashion. Highlighting again their Maltese cross, which is a barrel right there. Very beautiful piece. And of course, chronographs are almost ideal to open work in this way. You can see from the back that it has the same Lemania base as the 3970s that we were looking at. I think you can more or less see that from the layout. Of course, here the bridges are open worked and hand engraved. And in this case, the column wheel is exposed. Very beautiful piece. In platinum. Very variable at 38 millimeters in diameter and 10.4 millimeters in thickness. Paired, of course, with a platinum Maltese cross-styled Here again is another look at the Lemania movement through the case back. Hey, Robert, how are you doing? Nice swan neck regulator, open work bridges, the column wheel, and here's the open working from the front, where you have the mainspring barrel exposed with an open worked barrel cap that brings the Maltese cross symbol to sharp relief. The platinum Vacheron Constantin historique reference 47-100 chronograph with that famous Lemania base, open worked, currently being bid at 45,000 US dollars at lot 17. Again, Future Grail is a Singapore-based auction house, one of the disruptors in the industry, so to speak, with buyer's premium set at 6%. They're trying to offer something a little more competitive. Here's an Omega Speedmaster. The broad arrow. It is actually a self-winding piece with the movement 32-21. not an 861. Also in platinum, however, with blue accents, of course, with the broad arrow hands from which it takes its name, blue details that include the chronograph hands, the indices, as well as the omega symbol, the omega logo at 12 o'clock. Again, the piece is really masterfully open worked with numerous details that include hand engraving with floral and wave-like patterns. The reference number is 36585031 for this self-winding Omega chronograph in platinum that has an open worked treatment. Here's a look from the case back. Open worked oscillating weight as well that has at its center that hippocampus medallion. This is the Omega Broad Arrow Speedmaster, 42 millimeters in platinum, 13.8 millimeters in thickness. The piece has not yet attracted any bids. The starting bid would be 50,000 in US dollars, and the pre-auction estimate places the value of the piece somewhere between 50,000 and 60,000 in US dollars. We have an interesting lot here, lot number 15. This is a Cartier piece made for the 50th anniversary of India's independence, made to commemorate the 50th anniversary of India. A reference 1725. It's essentially a Tank Américain in 18 karat yellow gold, made in 50 examples with alternating, well, not alternating, but mixed Arabic and Roman numerals to balance out the 50 that features at 10 o'clock, 1947 to 1997, marking 50 years of independent existence for India. Lot number 15 is an example of Cartier Tank Américain that is made to commemorate that anniversary for India. There's the Cartier signature itself is shifted to 6 o'clock, right above a date window there. And the occasion is also engraved on the case back, India 1997, and the particular number of this watch in the series is number 38. Currently being bid at 15,000 US dollars at lot number 15. Okay, maybe we have time for 2 more pieces, unless there are any last minute requests. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone will give me. Oh, but we have 22 minutes to go. So 5 more super chats or $5 or more. I will be here until midnight. In fact, I don't know if that will happen, but I can at least stay for the next 20 minutes. Lot number 5 is a Chrono Tokyo chronograph 2, automatic chronograph number 2. This was the second iteration of the chronograph by Japanese independent watchmaker Hajime Asaoka's diffusion brand, so to speak, which uses Seiko self-winding movements for this design that has a date window at 3 o'clock, and that has a very kind of throwback design for its dial with a 2-register layout. At 9 o'clock, you have the continuous running seconds, and then, sorry, was it? I think it's the other way around. At 3 o'clock, you have the continuous running seconds, and then you have the minute totalizer at 9 o'clock. No, my bad. My bad. The continuous seconds is at 9 o'clock, and the 30-minute totalizer is at 3 o'clock. It's a stainless steel piece. And like all other Chrono Tokyo pieces, it was made for a specific release and then retired, even though the chronograph came back a couple of other times with even a more how shall I put it? Special edition as well. I think that eliminated the date window as well, but I'm sure that's already sold out too. It looked something like this. Again, a beautiful dial design. think I'm getting confused. I really think the continuous running seconds is at 3 o'clock and the minute counter is at 9. And I hope I'm not messing it up, but that's how I remember it from seeing it then. Lot number 6 is another kind of diffusion watch by an independent watchmaker. This was the collaboration between Vianney Alter and Louis Erard. Louis Erard, of course, made its name as a smaller brand that builds regulator dial pieces on Celita movement basis, and that comes up with interesting collaborations between Alain Zilberstein and Louis Erard, between Konstantin Chaikin and Louis Erard, and also Vianney Alter, among other watchmakers and artisans. This was, I believe, their first collaboration with Vianney Alter. It has been renewed over the years with pieces that perhaps integrated more extensively that distinctive retrofuturistic design language that especially characterizes Vianney Alter's Antiqua and some of the other collaborations from designs that have emerged from that initial collaboration, which fell apart rather quickly between Jeff Barnes, the designer, and Vianney Alter, the watchmaker. This is the Vianney Alter Louis Erard in stainless steel. I think the case is somewhere at 42 millimeters, which has been one of the reasons that kept me back, that held me back from exploring these collaborations. This is one of 178 pieces. With the regulator dial of the collaboration between Vianney Alter and Louis Erard. The piece has not yet attracted any bids, and it stands at the starting bid stands at $3,000. I think we have time for another 3 watches or so. So let's use that wisely. There's something I really like here, something really original. This is lot number 11 for an ultra thin octagonal piece by Vacheron Constantin. That it's one of those artistic shapes that almost look like a picture frame more than anything. It's an octagonal shape that has a stepped design. And it's the kind of shapes that you perhaps are more used to seeing from, say, Cartier, right? And I think there's an interesting Cartier piece in this collection as well. Maybe that's what we can explore next. And the similar shape, which is a little less finely designed, a little more blocky, is the Cristalor, I think Cartier calls it. But this is a little more fine. Some might prefer the substantive look of the Cartier Cristalor, which looks something like this. Let me pull it up if I can find it. It can, in jumbo examples especially, look quite impressive. Pardon me, this is how that looks like. Eric actually has an example in 18 karat yellow gold, 28 millimeters by 35 from the 70s at 24,000. This is the Cartier Cristalor in 18 karat yellow gold at Wind vintage. And then we were looking at lot 11 from the Future Grail online auction for September, which is a Vacheron Constantin, reference 33072, in yellow gold, in similar dimensions, but again, this piece has a more frail aesthetic to it compared to the Cartier, which may or may not be more preferable, may or may not be more in line with your taste. I think the strap chosen for it is awful. They should have just gone with, a black, simple strap, maybe an alligator one. I do love the railroad track for the minutes that mimes that octagonal case shape. Heat blued leaf-shaped hands, elongated Roman numerals, and a hand-wound movement, which is under the case back. Unfortunately, not fitted for the case. That shouldn't take so much away from what is otherwise a beautiful, ultra-thin dress watch. Very elegant and artistic. Again, as I said, like a picture frame, octagonal with a stepped bezel. Something like Cartier's Cristalor. That was lot 11 for the Vacheron Constantin, reference 33072, which is currently being bid at 4,000 US dollars. Lot number 20 is a limited edition of the Bulgari Octo Finissimo with the so-called sketch dial. These are, I believe, from last year, right? When they were celebrating the wait, when did the Octofinissimo come out? 2014? Yeah, okay. So they were celebrating the 10th anniversary with a dial that actually rendered from the sketches, from the initial sketches that the designer Fabrizio Bonamassa Stigliani produced for the model. One of 280 pieces in stainless steel. The sapphire crystal caseback also commemorates the occasion. Apparently, it happens also be to 140th anniversary of the house altogether, which is a nice coincidence. Of course, the micro rotor movement is perhaps one of the most important aspects of this watch, because at the end of the day, it is what gives the watch the ability to remain so fine, so ultra thin, even if it remains an efficient movement with a platinum micro rotor, the BVL 138. The watch has this architectural or simply sculptural appearance, appears larger than life on the wrist, but really wears so close to the skin, and especially in titanium, you can almost forget that you're wearing it. And the bracelet is designed in a really nice way as well. It's not only very supple, but the déployant right at your wrist is also sunk in to the bracelet, so it wears even thinner, top and down. So it's really a beautiful watch. Some people find it too large on the wrist, too wide. Um, I agree, but I like that cognitive dissonance again. Like, something that's so large on the wrist, so visible, but so easy to wear, so light to wear, uh, so comfortable to wear close to the wrist. I'm a big fan of the Octo Finissimo. This is lot number 20 for a limited edition version with the sketch dial. The pre-auction estimate sets the value of the watch somewhere between 15 to 25,000 US dollars. Please hit the like button, by the way, but the piece has not yet attracted any bids. Again, thank you for your support. I have maybe another 10 minutes or so, or 5, in fact. So I will discuss 2 more watches. The Laurent Ferrier Galet micro rotor is also a great piece. I love the square versions of the Galet. But again, very fine dress watch here in pink gold with that classic round-shaped case that has this allusion to quote-unquote a pebble, right, as its name indicates, as if it's a shape that has been organically formed through the years. pink gold case in 40 millimeters. The piece is powered by a micro rotor movement, so it's relatively thin, not ultra thin by any means, but 11.5 millimeters in thickness. Silver dial. And the caliber, which you can see right here, again, beautifully attired, called FBN 22901, features a natural escapement that has been inspired by Breguet's natural escapement, Breguet's conception of the natural escapement. Beautiful snail decoration on that gold micro rotor. The bridge, again, is fantastic looking and very nicely finished. The rotor bridge. It's really a beautiful, beautiful piece. Here's a closer look to the finishing of that bridge. Here's a closer look into that natural, into that balance and the natural escapement system. The silver dial features applied Breguet numerals and the brand's distinctive signature assegai-shaped hands. Small seconds on a subdial. At 6 o'clock. The piece is currently being bid at 32,000 US dollars at lot 21. Okay, last but not least, I will do one more before I sign off. Just because I love you so much, I'll actually do this perpetual calendar. This has been a theme anyways. Again, an absolute classic that is once again built on a legacy movement. We were talking about JLC 920 earlier in this broadcast. This ultra-thin perpetual calendar by Vacheron Constantin. The production years are around 1984 to 1995, if I'm not mistaken, for this reference, which is 43032, the open-worked version of the ultra-thin perpetual calendar. It is presented in a case that has a stepped bezel, 36 millimeters in diameter, here in pink gold, that has taken on a lot of patina over the years. The open work dial gives you a glimpse onto the perpetual calendar works that are, of course, always placed under the dial. So again, a great way of rationalizing open working skeletonization. The outer rings of the subdials are rendered in a kind of golden gilt shade that goes really well with the Dauphine hands. Moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock. With a lapis lazuli background for the moon phase disk that forms the night sky. And the difference that Vacheron's reworking of that JLC 920 base for the perpetual calendar is that they have the entire 4-year cycle at 12 o'clock, which obviously also serves as a leap year indicator. That's what distinguishes it from similar watches, from the cousins of this watch that were made by Audemars Piguet. Honestly, for me, this is a little too much oxidization on the case. Other people might think more romantically about it, might think it's more charming. For me, it's it's crossed over to being undesirable at this point, but it's still quite interesting. Of course, you can, if you're trained enough, you should be able to immediately recognize the JLC 920 with from that ultra thin profile that's at least partly enabled by the 4 ruby rollers that allow the oscillating weights or the rotor to oscillate around the base of the movement on 4 ruby rollers. And this features, of course, an open working of that weight as well, which brings into sharp relief the Maltese cross symbol of the brand. Of course, again, beyond the open working of the bridges, there are also freehand engravings that ennoble that finish further. And this rotor also has a supplemental gold weight to make up for that material loss by the open working. It's really a beautiful piece. Shame that the case is so thoroughly oxidized, but hey, I'm sure there are some people who like it, and there certainly are, since the piece is already being bid at 38,000 in US dollars. So can't be that bad. This is a Vacheron Constantin, reference 43032, an open worked ultra thin perpetual calendar by Vacheron Constantin, 36 millimeters in diameter, less than 8 millimeters in thickness, currently being bid at 38,000 in US dollars. All right, thank you, everybody. The fall season has started with auctions, so I'll be back hopefully tomorrow and the day after, and I'll try my best. Again, any of you who are watching this show right now and haven't reached out to me, you guys know I have a very important event and a very exclusive event that I'm organizing on Thursday. So if you're in Southern California, if you're in the Los Angeles area, you should certainly reach out to me so you can come. It'll be great to have your company. There's still 1 or 2 more seats, so there's time to reach out. But it might end up being a tight space, so I don't want to cast the net too wide, but I still have room for 1 or 2 more people. So if you are interested, and if you're in the Los Angeles area, or perhaps you will be on Thursday in the evening. Just reach out to me, DM me on Instagram. Of course, you should already be following me there. But if you don't, here is the link. If you have followed me from Instagram, you should certainly subscribe here because this is where we break things down further. This is where I also explore some of the questions that I pose elsewhere in longer form. This is where we do auction previews. This is where I share some of my insights into the watch market and into the industry. So I think you will gain a lot by remaining subscribers here. If you want to support the channel, of course, YouTube gives you a few options in the form of super chats. Once the live stream ends, of course, you can use super thanks to leave a comment and show your appreciation that way as well. That's a good way to pose questions to me, of course, even in between live streams as well, but certainly during a live stream. You can buy yourself or gift to others, again, during the live stream as well. Memberships, which give you access to exclusive content. And it's a good way to show consistent support to the channel as well, which I don't take for granted, but those are the things that allow me to put more time to this. And you guys know already with what time I can put into it. I provide you with a lot of quality content. So I always appreciate your support. Hitting the like is at least for free, but everything else, of course, is deeply necessary and even more deeply appreciated. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to be with you tomorrow as well, I hope. So I'll see you then. If you want to support the channel, again, there are some ways outlined in the video description. Until next one, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Goodbye.